What's up, gamers? NanMans here, and we are back with some more modern action, continuing with our lovely little coverage that we get to provide you guys every Monday and Thursday here for the paper action, and then of course our MTGO content coming out on Saturdays for y'all to enjoy. We've been playing some different leagues, basically doing like one-ofs. We'll pick a new deck, try it out, see how we go. Usually we're getting about 2 wins, sometimes 3 wins off of there, and then we usually fumble it and fall apart. Maybe one of these days, come summertime, we'll start actually like grinding a deck a little bit more. We were putting in a lot more work on our affinity list, and we have actually tried this list on MTGO. I have not released any videos of it, but this is the Enchantress list here. So this is Selesnya Enchantress. It is a deck that basically rose up, or I guess was allowed to rise up within Modern after the Modern Horizons 2 release of, all of the Enchantress pieces basically got added to Modern. Has it been able to do much? Is it a contender, a top-tier deck? No. It is not. Now, there are some really cool tools within the Enchantress build. I mean, there's a lot less enchantment hate. There's a lot more artifact hate, so there are some tools available to you. I mean, the biggest enchantment hate that exists, though, exists in Boros Charm, with players mainboarding Thraben Charm, so, it is a little bit of a challenge if you're trying to really play this Enchantress list competitively, because you're going to run into, the number 1 deck in Modern has main board hate against you. But there's some, of course, hexproof cards and things like that to help things out. Now, the other side of things is the Izzet Prowess list. You can see there is a stomping ground here because there is access to some green in there. You could be able to have some flexible sideboard cards. Of course, the Mutagenic Growths are one of those type cards that you get access to main board. So, we've seen some lists, some of the of course, Prowess lists rise up, and we'll have a couple more videos of them on the channel. We're going to have, of course, some more Boros Energy, because it's been a while since we have had some Boros Energy. But I wanted to, this week, kind of really show off some other decks, right? We had Bant Landfall versus Orzhov Zombies. That was kind of at the beginning of the week. Now we're seeing Enchantress versus Izzet Prowess. I mean, I like the Enchantress list because there is a little bit of a lockout setup with 2. Really, you get 3 cards and you're like, basically on safety mode, and you're okay. The deck is very grindy, very slow, so you kind of have to, it is tough when you're fighting against some fast decks like Boros Energy and Izzet Prowess, but things like this Soul Snare and stuff like that help out. Here's one of the cards we were talking about, like that 3-card lockout. Sterling Grove here. Other enchantments you control have Shroud. Then you can pay 1, sack it, search for an enchantment card, put it on top of your library. So it does get a little bit flexibility if they try to destroy it. You can, of course, tutor up a second copy of it or tutor up another card there. Yeah, I guess you just get two Sterling Groves out because it is not a legendary enchantment, and then you're good to go. Of course, our shopkeeper being nice enough and rolling some dice for us over, handing out some sweet little Lord of the Rings D6s that he had lying around. That's one of the nice things with our shop. Every so often, we'll get like these little bonus little things. Oh, here's a card, little bonus card. Here's a little dice and stuff like that. But of course, if you're liking the content, you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. Like I said, we've got content every Monday and Thursday, which is the paper content for you to be able to enjoy, and MTGO on the weekends. But yeah, we'll see how things go in this particular matchup. It is a little bit a longer one. We kind of fluctuate. Sometimes we have the speed games that are a little bit quick, like 20 minutes. Boom, boom, somebody wins 2-0. Sometimes we get these kind of longer matches that go to time, that are in those like 40 to 50 minutes, sometimes an hour. We cut out the dead space, though. So there is no dead space with player sideboarding and stuff like that. We sometimes talk a little bit about what is brought in post-match, though. So near the end, where players start to reveal what they brought in the sideboard side of things, we get to show that on camera there. But we've got Izzet Prowess going to try to go fast here, swing it in. And now I want to know from you Prowess players. I have the deck together. Basically, bought Steel Cutters relatively early in the cycle of their release, and I have picked up Violent Urges. Is Violent Urge one of those that you just kind of hoard? Like, should you be keeping that in your hand as long as possible just to be able to hit that Delirium and get the double strike and maximum damage done? Or are you just trying to kind of jam it out early like this and push for damage, knowing that, you know, the Swift Spear is likely going to get exiled off the Soul Snare? All right, Sanctum Weaver coming in. This is our mana dork within the deck. It is an enchantment creature, but we generate mana equal to the number of enchantments we control. So next turn, of course, we can generate 3 mana of any one color here. But very, very bursty hand here. Looks like we've got a Slickshot Show Off, a Steel Cutter, 2 bolts. I like the idea of even just plotting the Steel Cut or the Steel Cutter, plotting the our Slickshot Show Off. Like, we even have the playmat for it. I like the plotting of that this turn, and, you know, even just sort of pushing in for just sort of 1 damage here. Or you could push more, right? You could look like there was a bolt in hand. But I like the saving the bolt. But, you know, maybe if we see like a block of the Sanctum Weaver, then you can pop the bolt or something like that and try to burst some damage and kill off the Sanctum Weaver, still deal 3 damage, and kind of set yourself up. So then next turn, when you play your Steel Cutter, then you cast as your second spell your, you know, Slickshot Show Off, and then you can kind of really push for damage. But it looks like we're going to be opting for the Quarry Steel Cutter now, which is, you know, it's running rampant all over Standard. It is, of course, very powerful in Modern. We were trying out a Jeskai Narset list that's running it. We're currently recording a Death Shadow list that's running 2 copies of it in there, just to kind of, hey, here's some potential threats that we can put out early, but also the pay 2 mana and give a creature +1/+1 trample and haste, so I could play Death Shadow later and then just sort of burst someone down that they were not prepared for. So we're trying out some little shenanigans with a Death Shadow list right now that'll be coming out for you to enjoy soon. But speaking of things to enjoy, if you guys saw our posts that we put up on our social media stuff on the YouTube kind of post section here, we are going to be traveling to Atlanta, and we are going to be one of the featured content creators at the event. So I'm very excited to kind of be able to travel down there. We'll be able to play Modern for everybody. So if you're watching the channel and you're going to be attending MagicCon Atlanta in the fall around that September time, meet up with us. Come hang out. Play some Modern. We're debating about bringing some of our filming equipment down for this trip. We're not sure yet. We're still kind of working out the details for it, but maybe we can get some games in and put some stuff on the channel and do some recording for that event. So I'm really excited to be able to attend that. We, of course, do have Vegas coming up as well that we'll be traveling for. We are not like a featured content creator for that, but we are going to be, you know, doing some vlog content and some more behind the scenes stuff, and, you know, probably spend a lot of money on magic cards because that's what we do. But ooh, we take a chunk of life here, drop into 6, basically being as greedy as possible knowing we're playing against a burst deck. It's kind of like that dance of that you're fighting against a burn deck. Like, it's, you know, is this safe enough to do? But here's kind of why. Gonna make 2 white mana. Use 2 of it. 3, 4, 5 for our Sigil of the Empty Throne. So not all lists run this within the Enchantress list. I liked having this in mine. I'm fluctuating between numbers between 2 and 1 copies. Online, I was running 1 copy. In paper, I was trying out 2 copies of it. It just kind of helps us be able to close out the game. Here we're doing this Mana Bloom for 1 mana, and that of course triggers and lets us get a Angel. So we're trying to stabilize here and hoping for the best. Now, if it was just this and not 2 bolts in hand, we would be fine, right? We go, okay, cool, we could fight the Slick Shot. You know, we would take, you know, a little bit of extra damage here, but you know, we could do some blocking and stuff, but it doesn't matter. It's bolt will clean us up, and the prowess is enough to, you know, get there. So yeah, there we go. That is game number 1, the speed at which things go. So now we kind of get into what do we got in the sideboard to help slow things down. Now there are some enchantments that kind of those rule of law type effects that exist to help slow people down and kind of say, hey, you can only cast one spell a turn and stuff like that. So, there are options like that available for players if you're going to be going for that Enchantress style of play. The other thing is it's, the goal is to be able to stop ourselves from dying and really get into the later stages. So this game in particular, game number 2, if you're like looking at the clock and you're like, okay, this video still has a lot left in it. This one is a longer, grindier game number 2, but you really get to see what the Enchantress deck can do in this specific game number 2 here. But we'll keep talking through and talk about different plays, about what the deck's all about. Of course, if you're interested in seeing any of these deck lists, they are available on Moxfield. And if for whatever reason I'm slacking on putting up the most recent list, leave a comment. Let me know and say, hey, where's that deck list? Give me that deck list. I want to see this Enchantress stuff. I want to see this Izzet Prowess list going around. Temple Garden. Yeah, well, okay, so if you notice in game number 1, like a lot of the Temple Gardens and the Shocklands that I'm using for this list are all mix match. So I want to know where do you fall on the land counts? Are you all about matching? Do you like mix match? Like what are you doing with your deck? All right, Swift Spear poking in again. So the game 2 was also that kind of reevaluate. We were much greedier with our life totals, so how can we kind of slow things down a little bit here? Not just kind of shock ourselves a bunch. Another Sterling Grove to kind of come out, help give some Shroud, which, is really nice if we have a bunch of enchantment creatures that might otherwise get bolted or lava darted or stuff like that, so that, and then of course we have that pay 1 and do the search that we talked about. And yeah, so it looks like just the confirming of whether or not we could do some countering with that based on our kind of sideboard options here. All right, couple of lands in hand. What do we got? The Steel Cutter, Dragon Rage Channeler. I mean, I like that, just sort of Dragon Rage Channeler this turn and sort of set ourselves up. We even have the Lava Dart available, so we could push for damage with the Lava Dart, and then that sets us up for next turn with a Steel Cutter push. Yeah, so Dragon Rage Channeler coming out here. Of course, needs to get that Delirium. Every time you're going to be casting a non-creature spell, you do get that kind of flexibility to look at the top card of your library and decide to put it into your graveyard or not. So, and then we know that Delirium is also double duty because that gives one of our creatures trample with the Violent Urge. So, of course, always relevant. All right, pushing for damage here. All right, now the other question is there any shenanigans? Do I keep track of the life total correctly? Because I'm sure there's going to be stuff that I miss in the matchup. So let me know if you notice anything. All right. Yeah, I liked playing the Enchantress list. It's fun to basically use these cards that don't really see play. I like seeing, playing off meta decks. Will I feature it on the channel very much? I don't know. We'll see. It might be we'll just kind of do a roulette system or something like that and do some voting systems this summer and be like, okay, which deck are we playing this week for our weekly? Are we going to play something janky? Are we playing something more meta? Like where are we going from there? All right, Sanctum Weaver going to come out again. Does give us, of course, that Shroud, so we're not really worried about that dying. Second Consigned to Memory. All right, Steel Cutter here. Yeah, we don't really have a way to trigger it this turn, but pushing for damage is also really important. So we've got the lava dart. We can at least shoot face. And we're sort of in this sort of waiting mode here. Yeah, it's almost like a reactionary hand. Like, we don't have as much burst stuff. I mean, we got to see some of the triggers, right? It's like, oh, I don't want the angels to be triggered when of course, an enchantment's cast. So, like, I can understand why you might want to bring Consign in, but, like, I don't know. All right, getting the basic mountain here. I kind of would rather just hold the fetch. And, I mean, how many... I would assume there's at least one of the Surveil lands in the list, right? We would assume there's one. So I like just sacrificing our basic mountain here for the lava dart and keeping the mountain in our deck and try to just get some more information. Because again, if we can get our Dragon Rage Channeler to be powered up here, we're kind of set for a little bit more damage. All right, but it actually, our graveyard's just full of creatures, so we have no other instants of sorceries now. Our lava dart's gone, but this triggers our steel cutter, so that's kind of the importance for this play. All right, Swift Spear does get bigger. Steel cutter triggers, and we can kind of push for damage. Triggers. There we go. All right, now, if you're not familiar with Steel Cutter, of course, it does keep generating monks. Only triggers once per turn, but you can trigger it on your opponent's turn. Also, that +1/+1 haste and trample, very relevant here. So 6 total damage coming across. So the hesitation here and just taking the 6 to the face and not blocking the Dragon Rage Channeler, even though he's not active right now, it's still just like, I know the list runs, lightning bolts and mutagenics and other type effects that I don't want to just get blown out by something. So we're just like, All right, so Sithis. This is another big reason why the deck was able to sort of rise up and exist within Modern, is whenever you cast an enchantment, you gain 1 life and draw a card. These, Enchantress types effects, right, is the big reason this deck can exist. Whether it's, popular or anything like that is another thing. It's fun to, you guys know I love me a land go deck. It's very similar to that, where I'm just sort of like, I'm going to tap out on my turn and just sort of like F6 on your turn. And we've got Orim's Chance, though, so it's not always F6, right? We gotta respond a little bit to what's going on. And this, Orim's Chant, MVP against the kind of prowess list, because basically puts a hard stop on them. No, you're not going to be able to cast spells. No, you're not going to be able to attack with anything. You're just kind of stuck there. You can, of course, still play lands. You can still draw cards, but you can't do anything else. And that just sort of buying a turn is going to make all the difference here. We're up to 3 enchantments out, so of course we get 3 extra mana next turn. And every enchantment that we're going to start playing, we're going to start gaining life, and we're going to be able to start drawing cards, which is the real power of the Enchantress list. It's all these like trigger abilities. When we play an enchantment, we draw cards. Sanctum Weaver. Tempted to draw a card, but we have a response. And so we are going to start spending some consigns here. Now, here was the other thing. If we had gone for that Surveil land, assuming we had the blue-red surveil land, which I'm pretty sure there's at least one of in the prowess list. I have at least one of in mine. You know, we would have had that to use our second consign if we needed to. But then there was a discussion about how does replicate work, and if you're not familiar, replicate is like MVP against the Eldrazi list, because you could say, hey, I'm going to pay the one to counter your creature, like if there was a Thought Knot Seer or something like that. You could be like, I'm going to counter your Thought Knot Seer, and I'm also going to counter you looking at my hand. Or a Sowing Microspawn, you could say, I'm going to counter that creature, and I'm going to counter you tutoring for a land, or you exiling one of my lands. All right, another Sanctum Weaver going to come out. Now we're going to start being able to get the trigger, draw a card, and gain life. I think I gained an extra life there, though, on the editing. I think I should be at 10. All right, Solemnity. Have you figured out what the kind of lock is that we're going for? You know, have you noticed it yet? We're 20 minutes in. Solemnity is now shown itself. We've of course got the Sterling Grove there to kind of say, hey, everything's got Shroud. At least all my enchantments, which is all my creatures and the enchantments that I have out. But Solemnity, players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. Now you might look at it and go, well, that card doesn't actually help you against the prowess. Yes, you're right. It doesn't actually help us against the prowess until we get one more card. All right, we're going to go for the expressive here. Missed a land drop, so we're hoping to find one off the top 3. Of course, we do get a trigger first. And I think if we're looking for lands, we could just kind of dump whatever is on top into the graveyard, but unless it's something really good, you're like, oh, a lightning bolt or another steel cutter or something like that, that you're like, yeah, I really want to have that. So, oh, Violent Urge is up at the top. Okay. Ooh, but no land. I like... Ooh, gosh, that's tough. No lands. So, I mean, we already know we don't care about the Swift Spear. Right? So, is it going to be exiled, never to be seen again? Is it going to the bottom? I feel like, you know, our choices are the Violent Urge here and the End of the Flood Maw. We're going to go for the End of the Flood Maw. I guess it's the other question is how close are we to Delirium, right? We're not... We have a land, an instant, and a sorcery. No creature yet in the graveyard, and no artifact or enchantment in the graveyard. All right, we wish we could play a second spell to trigger our Steel Cutter, but we don't have anything with flashback in there. I mean, I guess we still just push for damage with the Steel Cutter here. And the Swift Spear, it's a 2/3. Yeah, just confirming the powers and toughness. Sanctum Weavers are 0/2s, and Sithis is a 1/2. Yep, I like that. Push for damage. Dragon Rage Chandler can stay back. You know, we want to keep utilizing his ability as much as possible. At 11, worried about, again, mutagenics and other type effects here. So it's like I can throw one of our Sanctum Weavers in the way. How much damage? It doesn't matter. That's the math here, right? If we block here, there's still going to be 1 trample damage because we cast 1 instant or sorcery this turn, or we had our prowess trigger with the trample, and then the Swift Spear still hits us for 2. If we block the other way, we still take 3. No matter which way we block, we're always taking 3 here. But it's better to kind of absorb a little bit just in case, especially after game 1 where we saw the lightning bolts flying. You know, we're still in danger. Now, I think the play here with that 1 untapped mana was to pop the Sterling Grove and tutor something up, because then we draw it. We decide to do it on our turn after we've already drawn for a turn. So just sequencing thing here. If you ever pick up this deck and your goal is to start tutoring with the Sterling Grove because your opponent's tapped out or something like that, coast is clear, do that on your opponent's turn, so then you can get the next card on your next turn, especially if you have Sithis, and then you get to start kind of snowballing, and you know, you can be able to try to find a way to get Sterling Grove back or something. Like in our case, we've got our land to help us out, but we are going to put this Phyrexian Unlife on top of the library. So that kind of lets you know what the kind of protective bubble that we're creating around the Enchantress deck. But no other effects. No other enchantments to draw them, so we didn't draw another enchantment. So I think that's maybe what we were hoping for and why we didn't pop it on our opponent's turn. Like, oh, we'll probably just draw an enchantment and we'll be okay. But was not the case. So I think that's kind of that one nuance thing of the sequencing of doing that stuff. All right, we got a land. It's not another blue source, but that's okay. So just confirming again what we're looking at, because there's, you know, the board gets a little bit filled up here. Salinity prevents counters from going on anything, including players. Sithis is a 1/2, and then 2 Sanctum Weavers. Sanctum Weavers are O2s, mana dorks that get mana of one color equal to the number of enchantments you control. So essentially, we've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana available, with 2 cards left in hand. So I can see why some Enchantress lists run like Emrakul or something like that, you know, up on their top end to be like, yeah, here's what I'm going to try to do. All right, so we're going to go into the Flood Maw, and said, I'm going to gift you a fish. Now, this could be useful if you're trying to get rid of Salinity and stuff like that. We don't have to gift a fish if we're returning a creature. So it automatically always returns a creature. But if a gift was promised, instead you can return non-land permanent. So this could mess up a Salinity and things like that. But in this case, we are just targeting a creature, so we didn't necessarily need to promise a fish. I don't know if it will make much of a difference here, other than like it absorbs another attack potentially. Look at, people are bumping into our table. Stop bumping into the table. You see the camera shaking like crazy? We've done so much better about stabilizing the camera once we have set up other tables near our filming location, but sometimes players will bump it. It happens. All right, so yeah, bouncing, confirming what we're going to bounce. We're going to get rid of Sithis here because it's the only thing with power, so it might as well just help kind of confirm things other than all the fish that we promised here. But this now allows us, okay, everything has gotten extra power. Surveil trigger. Let's throw something in the graveyard, right? We have land, instant, sorcery. Still no creature. Still no artifact. So we're close, but not there yet. Now, we talked about how much, when you start learning different decks, start playing different versions of the prowess, how important sequencing is, about when you're playing certain cards, especially with the Steel Cutter. It does care about having your second card trigger things. And like, oh, yep, haven't cast our second spell yet. You got to make sure you cast your second spell. So we have a Swift Spear that we should have, and another Dragon Rage channel. So it's like we're going to swarm with creatures. So we're missing out. We missed out on a second Delirium look. I mean, we kept the card on top, so it doesn't really make a much difference. But if we had put it into our graveyard, that would have been another thing to kind of think about here. And then looks like, we're just going to try to swarm the board. Here's another Swift Spear. Again, we missed out on 2 damage or 1 extra damage from that. Does that make much of a difference? Not really. Because, let's see. Attack. We've got 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I guess would be the maximum that could be dealt if everything was played in the correct order. But we have ways to kind of help out with that. All right, Endurance is coming in. Now, if Delirium was active, Endurance helps to shut down that, because we could say, hey, that graveyard of yours going into the bottom of your library. Now, the Endurance is not just in there. I keep an Endurance main board because it's not just used for things like this. It's actually really important and useful as the Enchantress player, because if I can get the engine going and we've got multiple Enchantress pieces and we're drawing like 2-3 cards for every enchantment that we're playing, we go through our deck very, very quickly. But yeah, we got to kind of jump a bunch of creatures in the way. The fish definitely helping out here. We're going to eat one of the monks. But for the most part, we get to take only a little bit of damage. We would have taken... We might not have blocked with both Sanctum Weavers at that point, but still a good chunk here. So essentially missing out on another 2 damage or another 1 damage. Right? How did we add that up? So would have been to 5 instead of 6. But Sithis is coming out, and now we're going to start going. All right, we're counting enchantments up. There's 4 enchantments. We're going to make 4 white mana. Now, Sithis is going to help us gain some life. We're going to put that Sterling Grove now on top using our Hall of Heliod's Generosity, the kind of one of in the deck. We want to try to keep our mana as much as possible here. 4 more white. Now we're up to 6 white. And we're going to try to lock things up a little bit. Here's 3 of it. Now we've got the Phyrexian Unlife. So if you have not been around Modern in the old school days of, the Phyrexian Unlife decks and stuff like that, it's you don't lose the game for having 0 less life. And now with Sterling Grove, making sure all of our enchantments have Shroud, you can't really interact with this. It's everything has protections. But Phyrexian Unlife plus Solemnity is kind of a lock. Because as long as we have 0 less life, all damage will be dealt to us as though its sources had infect. So we have to go to 0 first before the infect starts to kick in. But Solemnity prevents us from getting poison counters, because it says counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands, and players can't get counters. So with those 2 out, it is basically a blanket protection. We can go to 0 and be safe. One thing I was testing out and got on when I was playing online was I was at 0 life and go, sweet, I should be fine. Let me try to play this Shockland untapped. You cannot pay life that you do not have. So if you get to that 0 life and you have the Phyrexian Unlife out or things like that, you cannot shock yourself. You cannot pay life that you don't have. You can't Thoughtseize. You can't do these things that pay life as part of their cost or as part of their effects. So, for life 0, can't go below that off of specific cards like that. But we have to get to 0 before any infect damage starts coming across. But Solemnity, of course, prevents any of that from happening. So that is very nice. Oh, look at this. Nice little new cards coming out. But yeah, this is like we already saw the Into the Flood Maw get utilized. So we're kind of protected from that. Because basically you would need 2 Into the Flood Maws, because the Sterling Grove's here and the Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity is here. So in order to kind of really stop your opponents, is Sterling Grove would have to go away, and then you pop and bounce the Phyrexian Unlife. If our life total 0, the Enchantress player automatically dies. If there gets to be 2 Sterling Groves out, then you're screwed because both of them give each other Shroud, and you really have no way to interact with it unless you have a thing that says, like, destroy all enchantments, which nobody is running. All right, Lava Dart's going to start getting used. Double triggers happening. Oh, hey, the life total is 0 right now because I in the editing we did some finagling, and I guess I missed when the 0 life total came about. I don't know what I was doing. Again, I told you life totals are going to get wonky and weird in this, but we got to do a little bit of zapping, and then we got to start swinging for damage here. All right, moving to combat. No Delirium, of course. We've got our 3/4 here, so we can do some blocking. We'll block the Monk. 2, 4, 5, 6. Go to 0. There's the 0. We were down to 6. Took 6. Go to 0. Now we're all caught up. So now that we're at 0, any damage dealt to us will be dealt in the form of Infect or Poison. Problem is, Slimity prevents that. So if we go Lava Dart you, it goes, all right, attempt to deal 1 point of poison damage to you. Meh. Negated. All right, now we've got Enchantress present. So our second Enchantress effect, it is an enchantment. We do gain a life. We do draw a card off of Sithis. So now we're back to 1. And so now the question is, okay, so how does the game end? Like, you're not going to be able to kill me with a Sithis. You're not going to be able to kill me with an Endurance. I could just start blocking and setting myself up. So how am I going to die here? Well, we're going to start playing all these enchantments. So we're doing the count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right now. We're going to make 8 white mana. He said, this game's going to go on forever. No, it will not go on forever because there is actually ways to win. But this is one of the nice little tools we've got. Ixalan's Binding, just sort of the one of in the list for pesky cards like Steel Cutter. Now we can exile that and be able to prevent that card from being played anymore this game. Draw 2 cards, gain a life. Still 4 white mana floating. So now we do another double check. 9 enchantments, get 9 green mana. And the goal here is to get up to 14, because here is how we can win. Destiny's Spinner. Enchantments and creatures, spells that you cast can't be countered. It's a 2/3. Target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until the end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments that you control. It's still a land. Now, if we don't kill our opponent this turn, we know we kill them next turn because we're at 10 right now. There's 1 untapped mana that we have. There's a second Destiny Spinner coming out, and we're basically sort of going through the list. All right, okay, yep, I'll draw another card. As long as we have 4 mana available. Right now we have 9. So that basically says we have 5 mana available to cast spells. Specifically enchantment spells. So if we can get any more of our 2 drops, that helps us out. And says, hey, I've got all this mana. I just need 4 mana. And I could be able to sort of cast and make a trample enchantment creature. So it says, okay, cool. I see what you're trying to do now. I can kind of adjust my sideboard. There's some better cards that I have in here against your list. Now that I got to see basically what you're doing and how you can lock me out of the game, I need a couple other tools to help me out here. So here we're going into game number 3. So thanks for everybody that's still with us, tuned in for this kind of longer, grindier one. I really wanted to showcase this list because, again, it's not often that we get to see some of these decks, especially on, the tournament circuit. But if you're playing on an MTGO, you get to see a whole lot of craziness. right? Players are playing Neoform. Players are playing, all kinds of crazy things out there. But we've got a turn 1 Swift Spear to start it off. Poking for damage, dropping to 19. All right, Temple Garden. Old school sign Temple Garden at that. Again, all of trying to have all the Shocklands be different arts. All right, there's a Blood Moon, which would normally be very effective against a lot of lists, but also we run a lot of basics. We've got some mana dorks, so it's not as effective as other cards, but the Pick Your Poison is very effective because you just say sacrifice an enchantment, and if there's like a Sterling Grove or something, we're not targeting, right? We're just saying you have to sacrifice something. All right, fetching. I don't know. I get a Steam Vents here. Probably our stomping ground because we have the Pick Your Poison. Oh my gosh! Look at all these cards are like upside down and mix and match. Ooh. Okay, so we're going for the basic. I don't know. I think we know that after game 2, the Enchantress list is a little bit slower. It took so long to really set up and get going. I think playing it safe to take some more damage here is better. Now, if we were fighting against another quicker, faster deck, you might want to preserve your life totals and stuff like that, but not getting access to a specific card in our hand just turns it into a dead card there, right? And so why, I don't know. I don't like that as much. Oh. Active player, turn 0. And right now 0. So we're on turn game 3, turn number 2 for our player that went first. Active player turn 0. So Bolt drop to 13 or 16, sorry. Gets +1. And then I like this a lot. Monstrous Rage. You see that every so often in some lists. I think it's really, really cool. You get the Monstrous Roll token, so creature will be able to get +1/+1 and trample. So basically it does what Steel Cutter's like base effects is. But also, until the end of turn, the creature is going to get +2. So 2 spells have been cast this turn on the Swift Spear. And the +2 damage. And the roll token. So there's 6 more damage coming across. So very powerful turn here. To sort of basic land go. All right. Dragon Rage Channeler. Then we, of course, get... Oh, again, that dead card. That's I don't like it. It hurts me a little bit, but that's okay. Right now, we're still pushing for damage. And again, the question is, with the Violent Urge, do we save it till we get Delirium, especially with Dragon Rage Channeler available? But Celestial Purge is going to come out and put a stop to this. Celestial Purge, as I feel like, is MVP in Modern if you're running white, because exile a red or black permanent, you're like, oh yeah, this helps out so well against the Prowess decks. There's annoying cards that the Boros Energy players are running. I mean, a lot of the most annoying stuff the Boros Energy runs are white, though, let's be honest, like Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls, stuff like that. We can only get rid of a flip to Johnny, which is pretty worth it to get rid of, but... Alright, Phyrexian Life, down to 8. We're in turn 3, but this at least hopefully, in theory, confirms the lockup here. I mean, enough that it's like our opponent has to basically deal 18 damage to us. It basically, by playing this card, we gain 10 life. Blood Moon's coming out, which we don't really care about. But, like, if there was the green source, you try to do the Dragon Rage Channeler stuff. You know, we pop the enchantment. We push for more damage here. So, do we have Delirium? Nope. So, one little bit of damage. All right, turn 5. And a basic mountain coming out thanks to Blood Moon. And a Destiny Spinner, so a nice little blocker. And that is going to be it. Hands extended. 1-1-1 between the players. Very fast burst turn setup for game 1. And even in this game 3, like, it was setting up for some really explosive plays here. But now we get to see at least a little bit of what sort of sideboard cards players brought in. You know, you get to start seeing a little bit more of each other's lists as we kind of slowly scroll through things here. But yeah, there's a little bit of the sideboard stuff that we've got available. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing a little bit of the off-meta decks here. It is nice to be able to showcase kind of the diversity of Modern and just sort of how many fun decks exist. And you don't necessarily have to play the top decks. Play what you want. Have fun. Come out. Do Modern. It's great. But yeah, that's going to do it for us here for our weekly episode. Of course, check back on Saturday for more MTGO content. But that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everyone. And I'll see you all next game.